going on, VIPs? How are you guys doing? Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. For anyone who is new, welcome to my channel. And for all of you returning subscribers, thank you so much for your loyalty. Thank you so much for viewing my videos. Please make sure you like and subscribe to my channel if you like my content. I aim to please. I'm here to give great content. I aim to give useful content that betters your life, that helps you out. On today's video, I want to talk about how I only pay $500 in rent living in Los Angeles, California. Yes, I said $500, not $5,000. $500 I've been paying for the past 6 years. It'll be 7 years next month in April. That's crazy. Time flies by so fast. Living in Los Angeles, California. The first year, actually, I was paying $550. But after that, after I got in here and started working my system, we got it down to $500. And I could really get it down lower than that if I wanted to. But I'm going to talk more about that. So I'm going to give you guys a little backstory on my apartment. So back in 2014, I moved to Los Angeles, California. I moved here, I'll never forget this. I moved here in January of 2014. Before I moved out here, guys, I had no apartment lined up. I had no prospects. I didn't even look for an apartment. I didn't even put in the headache of looking for an apartment because I knew that at the end of the day, I needed to physically be here before I did any searching for an apartment. For me, I knew that it would kind of be a waste of time calling people, getting rent prices, and that's another thing too. Like, a lot of people, they're not transparent with rent prices. I don't know why the industry is like that. When you go online, they don't tell you how much rent is. You gotta call them to find out how much rent is. Then, by the time you go and look at the unit, the rent has gone up. I'm just like, come on, people. Like, be more transparent with me. I don't have time for these games. Like, people are trying to find a place to live, have a roof over their head, and they're trying to get down to whether they can afford it or not. That's the whole point of this. The whole point of me looking for an apartment is to see if I can afford it. The industry is just not really all that transparent. I have noticed lately a lot of luxury apartments, when you go online and you look at the floor plan and the virtual tour, you'll see that they'll have the rent prices, and they're pretty transparent. I do like that trend lately that's been going on. But back in 2014, forget about it. They wasn't doing none of that. And I think most apartments still are like that. So before I moved here, I didn't have an apartment lined up. I had nothing lined up. I had no prospects. But I did, however, knew where I was going to stay for a little bit. So before I moved to Los Angeles in 2014, I came out here maybe, I want to say 3 different times to visit. Just to visit, scope out the city to see if I really liked it here, see if I could see myself being here. And of course, I loved it. There's no place like LA. Weather, the scenery, it's all me. Like, I hate winter. When I came here to visit, I stayed in a hotel. It was a hostel. It was a hostel in downtown LA. You may have heard of it, but it's called the Cecil Hotel. I didn't know it at the time when I stayed there, but it actually has a really creepy past. People have died there. Like, if I had knew that at the time of me staying, I would have never stayed there. But I learned that after the fact. But yeah, they're crazy. But so when I moved here officially, I came here with, one suitcase, and I came here with a savings of, I want to say, maybe $2,000 or $3,000. Not much at all compared, considering Los Angeles, California's rent. Not much. That's not much money at all. Okay, so I booked a couple of nights there, and as soon as I got here, you guys, as soon as I got in LA and I got settled into my room, I went online and went ham looking for a place to stay. Not necessarily an apartment, but something that was, I want to say, like transitional or something temporary until I found a permanent apartment, okay? And I get on Craigslist and I see that a lot of people are posting like, rent a bunk bed in this room, in this house with a bunch of people who are thriving artists here in LA and things like that. So I was like, oh, let me hit this ad up. Hopefully it's legit and it's not nothing cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And I hit up the ad and the person responded. I went and looked at the unit and the bunk bed. It seemed legit. The rent was only $300 a month, you guys. It was inside of a house. The house was huge. It was a really nice house. The house, I want to say, maybe had literally 5 bedrooms. It was so nice. The house was so dope. It had 5 bedrooms, you guys. And in each bedroom, there were 3 bunk beds. So that's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 bunk beds in a house, period. So as you can imagine, that was a mess. You had a lot of roommates. You were in close proximity. You really had no privacy. But you know what? It was a great experience. If you had told me 6, 7 years ago when I had my own apartment in Nashville before I moved out here that I'll be having all those roommates and that I'll be living in a bunk bed, staying in a bunk bed, I would have looked at you like you were crazy and laughed in your face. I would have never thought that I would do something like that. But I wanted to be in LA so bad that I made that sacrifice. I didn't have much money to play around with as far as getting an apartment at the time. So I did what I had to do, and I did what was best for me. Great group of people. It was an all-male house, by the way. A lot of the guys were there for acting. A lot of the guys were there for music. And so you bounced ideas off each other. You worked together. I loved that. I really loved that. I'm so grateful I didn't have a horror story. There weren't people there doing heavy drugs and prostitution and the stuff you see in movies, I didn't experience any of that at this house. Everyone there were genuine artists. Everyone there was so passionate about their art. And I loved that. That inspired me. Like waking up every day, people were working on something. People were downstairs in the living room, sitting down, talking about ideas, script ideas, song ideas, editing, this, that. It was so awesome. Of course, there was drama. People argued. That comes natural. With so many people, you're going to find people that you don't agree with often, and you're going to argue. That came along with it too. And I had my fair share of arguments too I only got into like one argument with somebody. And the person was being so unreasonable. It was a mess. The person was jealous that his best friend was clinging to me more and becoming more of my really great friend. I don't think that he liked that, and so he disliked me because of that. And I came later. They were already there before I came. They were already there, and they already formed a great friendship. And then I came in and interrupted that, and so that made the person mad. So he was mad at me, and we got into that. Yeah, that was a little mess. That was the only argument I got into. We made up. It was all good. We moved on. But for the most part, it was a really great crowd, and I'm so glad to have had that experience because I'll never forget that. I will never forget that. And I really wish there's a select few people that I'm still in touch with on social media, but I really wish, all of us could be in contact with each other and kind of have like a reunion. That would be so cool if we had like a reunion or something. It literally felt like the real world or something like that. It really felt like Big Brother, like it was awesome. I want to say maybe 3 months in, the house owner, he gave everyone a 30-day notice and said, hey guys, I'm kicking you guys out. It turns out that he was going to renovate his house. From that point on, it was like survival of the fittest. Like everyone was talking about how they were having a hard time finding an apartment, or they found something else that was similar to what we were staying in. And people were, every time we looked up, someone moved out, and it was getting sadder and sadder and sadder. People were leaving. It was really sad. And so me and the good friend that I made, we decided to find an apartment. We decided to not stay in a similar housing. We wanted to grow. We didn't want to stay stuck in the same situation. We wanted to get an apartment. Him and I, we would go to work, and on our off days or on our free time, we'd be looking online every day leading up until it was time for us to go. We were looking for an apartment. And I tell you guys, it was so stressful because we weren't finding anything. We weren't getting any leads. Until last minute. It was very stressful because it was like, oh my God, are we gonna be homeless? Like I don't want to be homeless. Like I didn't move out here to be homeless. It was becoming like tough. I'll never forget that. It was tough. It was tough trying to find an apartment. And so one day I wake up early in the morning. I get on Craigslist and I find this apartment. And the rent was very reasonable. Divided by 2. It was a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. And at the time, I didn't know it was a good deal. I didn't know that the average rent that they were offering was that of a studio here in LA. I didn't know any of this. I knew nothing about rent control. Again, I'm only in Los Angeles 3 months in. I don't know any of this stuff. So at the time, I'm still thinking, oh, this is expensive. But I was like, wait a minute. Well, if you divide it down the middle, that's nothing in rent. So I knew, I had some idea that it was reasonable, but I had no idea overall the rent for a 2-bedroom apartment, that was a really good deal. And so I called the landlord, emailed the landlord, and me and my friend, we came here, looked at the unit, we loved it. He said someone else has looked at it and it's first come, first serve. So whoever pays the deposit first, they get it first. And so we were stressing over there. We're like, oh my gosh, what if somebody else beats us to the punch? Because here in LA, you guys, it's survival of the fittest. It's like apartments go like that. It's like you gotta have your money together. You gotta have your money already ready to pay. You gotta have everything. You gotta have all your ducks in a row. So I don't know how we did it, because both of us worked part-time. We weren't getting many hours at our jobs. We got our money together. We paid our security deposit. We paid our first month's rent, and we moved in here, okay? And at the time, our rent was $1,100. $1,100. So you do the math, that's like $550. Our security deposit was $1,100. We split that down the middle, and then our first month's rent was $1,100, and we split that down the middle. So we both paid $1,100 each. This building that I stay in, it's rent controlled, which is great. If you guys don't know what rent control is and you happen to be moving to Los Angeles or want to move to Los Angeles, I have a video that I'm going to put right up here that tells you what rent control is, or you can do a simple Google search. I'm also going to put a link in the description on how to know if a building is rent controlled, okay? In the video, I talk about the difference between rent control, Section 8, and based on income, low housing, because they're 3 separate things. They're not all one and the same. They're all different things, exclusively to LA. I don't know any other cities that do rent control. All I know of right now is LA. With rent control, the landlord, if he or she decides to, they can go up 3 to 4% a year. So they can't skyrocket the rent. I want to say for the first 2 or 3 years, the landlord never went up on the rent. And I think maybe year 4 or year 3, it could be, is when he finally started going up his 3%. And so every year after that, he every year, he goes up on his rent. But at the end of the day, it's nowhere near what regular market rent is for a 2-bedroom apartment here in LA. I think right now, the average for a studio is maybe like $1,300. And I paid $1,250 for my 2-bedroom apartment. So that gives you some perspective. Now, fast forward to 6 months later, my friend, he moved out, he moved back home, he left, and so the apartment was still in my name, of course. It was in both our names at first. And so now I was left with, do I pay the full rent here? That's still expensive for one person, or do I find a roommate? And so, of course, naturally, find a roommate. And so I'm really lucky, you guys. I have a landlord who lets me continue to rent out the 2nd bedroom. You guys, he doesn't even care like who I have coming up in here, as long as he has a photo of their ID and and they fill out an application and he knows who's in the building. He's good with that. So he trusts my judgment. Rent has always been paid on time. So he trusts my judgment, which is a great thing. I really do. I'm so thankful. I'm so glad I have a great relationship with my landlord. And so for the past, ever since my friend moved out, I've been renting out my 2nd bedroom. And guess what, you guys? I charge what I want. So right now my rent is $1,250 and I only pay $500, and the remainder balance, my roommate pays. And so, and then of course, all the utilities and things like that are in my name and I pay those out of pocket. So really, you can say my rent is probably maybe like $625-ish, something like that. But my check going to the landlord, my half, is only $500. I've actually updated my kitchen. I've added a new refrigerator. I've painted the cabinets. I've done a little renovation to the 2nd bedroom. And so that gives me the right to go up on the rent on my roommate's rent. And so I'm looking forward in the future to raising the rent as well. Not too crazy, because you can find your own bedroom in someone else's house or something like that for like $800, $850. But I think the max I can go up is like $850. I can't go above that, because then that's like pushing it. The great thing about my apartment is that I have I have two entryways. So my roommate has their own entryway, and then I have an entryway to leave out of the building, which is great. I think that's a really great selling point because a lot of people, they like the privacy. They like the quote unquote feeling of living by themselves. And so it's great. It would be really, really ideal and awesome if I had another bathroom in here, but it's only one bathroom apartment. As you can imagine, I've had a lot of roommates. I'm on my I want to say I'm on roommate number 8, and I've been extremely lucky. I've had all pretty good, decent roommates. Nobody like crazy, you know. I've had a couple of people who, you know, have my pet peeves has went wild because of them. But for the most part, most people have been decent. Nobody has been crazy for Cocoa Puffs. I usually go off vibes when I meet people when they come look at the room to rent it. And if I got a good feeling about your vibe, I'll go with you. And then I have my own contract as well, my own roommate contract saying, hey, if things don't work out, I have the right to give you a 30-day notice, etc., etc. So now I guess you could say I'm getting my practice on with being a landlord, which brings me into my next thing. I'm actually looking to get into real estate soon. I really want, in my future, in the next 5 years, I want to get off into real estate investing. I think I'll be really good at it. I've always been an advocate for ownership. I've always been an advocate for, you know, just having your own stuff and not depending on someone else. I've always been an advocate for that. I've kind of had no choice but to be that way growing up because my parents weren't really in my life. My aunt and my grandmother raised me coming up, and they raised me to be very independent. And, you know, my first apartment I got at like 20 years old. You know, and I've always been a self-sufficient person. Thankfully, I've never had to like fall back on anyone after getting out on my own. I've always been able to find my way and just do my own thing. I'm so grateful for that. I've never really had to call home or ask my aunt for money to help me for rent or anything like that. And also, I was raised as an only child too, so I think that has a lot to do with it as well. I was never spoiled or anything like that. But yeah, I was raised to be very independent and on my own. And so with that, I think that I'll be really great at running real estate. I've got a lot of learning to do. I've got a lot of knowledge to gain on real estate, but I'm really excited for the journey. So basically, I house hack or apartment hack. House hacking is when you have a house that you own, and let's say you have 4 bedrooms. You rent out the other 3 and you stay in one. Other tenants pay most of your rent for you, or they pay all of your rent. You can have it to where they pay all of your rent. You pay nothing in rent, and they're helping you pay off your mortgage. Basically, I do that, except it's not mine, and it's of course an apartment. And so someone else pays my rent. It would be really nice if I could have someone pay all my rent. Living on your own is great, but it's even greater if you could get a roommate and reduce your expenses and not pay barely nothing in rent. Like, you know how much money I save only paying $500 in rent or $625 in rent. I'm able to do so much with my money. I have so much free money to save, invest, or put it towards something else. Right now, I'm saving up for my first real estate investment property, actually, from the money that I'm able to save from paying such low rent. I'm really excited about my future with real estate, and I hope you guys found this video valuable. Hope you found it useful. Hope it helped you out. Again, I'm going to put the link below in the description on how to find rent control buildings here in LA. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and a subscribe. I really would appreciate it. And I will catch you guys on the next one. All right, bye guys. See ya. Are you having a hard time paying off debt? Download my PDF straight to your phone at mydebtlossjourney.com. This gives you action steps to targeting your goal of budgeting, paying off debt, and saving.